You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we have the pleasure to welcome in Leann D. Stanick, owner and managing partner at Stanick Law, LLC, focusing on immigration, business, and real estate law, located in Jersey City, New Jersey, but serving clients all over Greater New York City and globally with immigration law. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Ben?
Great. It's so good to finally have you on and to see you somewhat face to face. I guess this is face to face in the days that we live in.
As good as it gets, right?
That's right. So first off, we have to say congratulations for getting engaged last week. We saw that on the Instagram story. We're super excited for you. Much happiness, and I'm sure now you have to pick a date and a venue and all that stuff. So that's great. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to thank you for from Lawyer Stories for being so supportive. Like, we actually first featured you on October 25th, 2019. Yes. That was sort of a while ago. We launched in 2017 of July. So like sort of in between like where we are now with Lawyer Stories. And I think about a month after or a year after you launched your own firm, maybe it was a month after. So we have a lot to catch up on.
We do.
With Leann. So to like jump right into your story, in 2019, you have a great story, by the way. It's an immigrant story. You came over from another country, which looks beautiful, by the way. I Googled it today, and the location is amazing. Yes. So back in 2019, you indicated in your lawyer story that you immigrated with your parents from Trinidad and Tobago. So how old were you when you immigrated, and what was the experience like?
Yeah, so the first time I moved to the US was right before first grade. So I actually moved back and forth. So I had this really unique experience of growing up in both places and never really thinking of either location as home. So I did first grade here. I went back to Trinidad and I moved back and forth. I did my last year of Trinidad in high school, actually. So
wow.
Going to high school in Trinidad for a year in New York and in New Jersey. So it was like a crazy time for me and probably one of the most important times in my life. And so when I first moved here, I distinctly remember getting to the airport and hearing the American accent for my very first time. And I thought kind of like, wow, what planet am I on now?
Yeah.
I guess I need to figure out how I'm going to speak moving forward. So I chose to adopt the American accent. Then, of course, when I moved back to Trinidad, I was bullied for having an American accent. So I went through a lot of that with the moves back and forth. And it's so funny how now it's like such a great benefit to me that I grew up in both cultures, especially as an immigration attorney, especially working with immigration population and, people from all over the world. So I can really relate to their experiences having come to the US and trying to build a life here.
Right. So what was the back and forth for? Like you said, the first time was in first grade and then you went back
so a lot of immigrant children actually experience this. What happens throughout the immigration process sometimes is that you don't get to stay with your parents. So sometimes your parent will get married and then they'll go to the States before you. There's something in US immigration called follow to join now. So it's a little easier to bring your children along. But back then, a lot of immigrants, they would come to the US, get their sort of, paperwork, their legal paperwork together, and then they would have their children join them. So I think when I was younger, I would visit the States, but
Okay.
I didn't get my official green card until like, I think third or fourth grade. So there was a period of time where I wasn't technically supposed to stay here, right? So I just came to visit with family members.
Yep.
And then I spent a lot of time living with grandparents because of that.
Right. And then you went back over high school?
Yeah, so high school was a fun year. My mom went down to Trinidad to deal with property. So it's kind of interesting how real estate has been a part of my life, even from the
Yeah.
very beginning. So
It
she
all
said,
has. It all ties in, and that's
yeah, it
like
all sort
one of
of
the
ties in together.
yeah.
So she says, I'm going to deal with some business down there. What do you want to do? So of course I said, I want to come too, because I'm a high schooler. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing to move back to an island, get some good weather.
Yeah.
And it was a really fun year. I went to an all-girls school that year too, and I really think that was like a phenomenal experience for me compared to going to a public high school in New York City. Just two totally different worlds.
Yeah, so okay, so it was New York City when you were in the States.
Yeah.
That's all, and like the New York accent was the first accent that you probably heard, right? That was
Yeah.
just talked about the accent, right? Okay.
It would have been
Um,
JFK for sure.
what's that?
It would have been JFK Airport.
Yeah, that's awesome. That the things that we remember.
Yeah.
So fast
And of course,
forward.
because I was so short, I looked up at him and he just like belted out this accent at me, and I was like, oh,
Wow.
I'll never forget that.
Who is this?
It was the immigration officer when we first
Wow.
went to JFK. Yeah, I'll never forget him. Who knows
Yeah,
what his name is or where he is now, but yeah.
that's amazing. So excuse me. So you stated in your story that you believe that no person should be deemed illegal. Like, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, so as we all know, the prior administration sort of likened illegal immigrants to criminals. And I take issue with the term illegal because it gets construed as having broken the law in a more serious sense
Right.
instead of just being in the US, having overstayed a visa. There are people that overstay their visa and don't even know that they overstayed their visa, especially when you have a temporary visa that allows you to come and go. Some people don't realize that when your passport is stamped with a certain date, you have to leave on that date. You don't leave on the date that the visa is valid throughout the entire time.
Right.
So I take issue with that comparison that was made throughout that administration, because I think it's sort of left a stain on the immigrant community.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. So sort of fast forward a little bit, sort of past, we're going to come back, but
Okay.
do you feel that like your life experience going through the immigration process, and you even mentioned real estate, which you also do now,
Mhm.
do you feel that those, being a part of those maybe legal issues has helped you as an attorney have more empathy and compassion for your clients?
Yes, definitely. So I think everything that I've done so far, especially with my practice, I can find a way to connect it to some experience I had as a child or some experience my family dealt with as a whole. The very first law firm I interned at was a real estate law firm. It was a small practice, 2 female attorneys. With my first practice, so I actually started my first practice in 2016. I started
Okay.
with a female partner. So when that happened, I think in the back of my mind, I already knew what to do and how to
Right.
run a business,
Yeah.
even though I hadn't been an attorney for very long. I had seen over the course of, well, now it's been over a decade because I would have started at that firm in 2010. So I would have seen how to run a small law firm for at least 6 years off and on before I started my own practice.
Yeah. Wow. So when you see people who might have no experience in that area, are you sort of like what's your feeling? Do you just feel like, you're sort of like a guru, like you've been through it, you feel really comfortable with the law and
That sounds really dope. I wish I could consider myself as like a legal sort of guru. That's
there
awesome.
you go. Yeah.
I think it just allows me to connect with my clients in a way that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
Yes. Okay.
And I think attorneys and clients speak completely different languages. They call
Yep.
it legalese. I'm sure you've heard of this term. So I'm fortunate in that I don't have to speak to my clients in legalese. I can speak to them from a very human perspective and say, well, when I went through this process, this is what happened. I know this is what happened to this family member.
Okay.
And, throughout my experiences with real estate, I can give you this storyline that is very personal to me. It's not
Yeah.
just something that I experienced being across the table from
Right.
counsel.
No, I think that's actually useful as a client. If I was a client, it's great to know that my attorney has gone through, has experienced hands-on, like in their personal life, even though you might not talk about your personal life all the time with your client, but
Right.
you could say, yeah, I've gone through that, but maybe you don't get into details. But I actually think that's really like significant to connect, like you said, being able to connect with your clients. So I think that's a tremendous asset to have that you have.
And I think even though I no longer have a Trinidadian accent, because like I said, I was bullied so terribly, I sort of chose a side. I think it's really fun when I get to disclose that to my clients, like, hey, I'm also an immigrant. I also migrated to the US. My family also struggled when we first got here.
Yeah.
Because it was difficult to be stable at first. And so I can relate to those that are waiting for their EADs while their green card application is pending. And they're like, well, what am I supposed to do for work? It's a very real problem.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I'm sure your clients really appreciate you. So you went to SUNY Albany. I actually applied there, right? Like, how did you? Not to change the subject so quick, but I wanted to bring that up. I didn't want to forget. Like, I remember I went to look at that school way before you because I'm like much older, but it was a cool campus, but I didn't end up going there. But what was your experience like there? Did you like it?
I loved it. It is a very cool campus. One fun fact about that campus specifically is that it was actually modeled after a campus, I think, in Arizona. So it's got a very unique look to it. I don't know if you recall, but the architecture is...
No, so what I remember about that, Leann, is like there's 4 like pillars, like all
there's 4 pillars, correct.
4, yeah. Yes. I just remembered it. Like I liked Albany. It wasn't too far from home.
It's not your typical campus. And then we also had underground tunnels. So whenever the weather was really bad, rain or snow,
that's awesome.
You can actually transport yourself underground from the dorms into like the educational buildings.
So you had a good experience there. And then like what made you did you go to law school right after? And if you did, what made you go right down to Florida Coastal?
I did. So I went right after I graduated. In hindsight, I kind of wish I took a year off and maybe traveled or worked for a bit, but I was just like in such a hurry to get everything done.
Right.
I thought I would have wanted to stay in Florida. I think I was thinking, oh, I'll be closer to Trinidad, closer to the Caribbean. That might be a better area for me. But I think I'm just like really, truly more of like a New Yorker, New Jerseyan at heart. I wound up going back here afterwards. I took the New York and New Jersey bar, and I feel most at home here, I would say, when I'm in the US.
So, but that's a great experience to go down to like Miami, go down to Florida Coastal, get a good legal education down south, and then, you get to make the decision to come back to New York. So like, if you had advice for law students today, just general advice, what would it be?
I think if I could talk to my younger self, I would sit myself down and say that every part of your career, whether big or small, it's essentially a stepping stone to where you're ultimately meant to be. And sometimes it feels like a detour. Sometimes it's a straight up rejection, right? Like all of us that have applied to law schools have been rejected, have, applied for internships, applied for jobs and been denied or not even responded to. Some of us have been ghosted by the individuals we were hoping to work for. And it feels sometimes like, well, what am I doing here? But I think you did a good job of tying it all together with my background, where immigration played a role, real estate played a role, even the very first firm that I worked for played a role in my careers to come. And even between, so I think I mentioned I'd started my first firm in 2016. I restarted. Stanick Law was founded in 2020, actually at the height of the pandemic. So even in that period of time, I went on to work for a firm that does primarily deportation. And I also worked in-house for a tech company that did mostly business immigration. So both of those experiences also made me even better as a practitioner for my second law firm. So there's never really a wrong step or a wrong move. You really just need to sit down and think about how your current set of circumstances can benefit you in the future, even if that future is 6 years down the road, because you really cannot predict. If you would have told me when I graduated from law school that I would start my own law firm, I would have probably laughed in your face. But here I am. Absolutely, this is not my plan whatsoever.
And I just want to say something, because you did mention like you worked here and you worked there. If everybody out there goes to Leann Stanick's LinkedIn, you have amazing experience. Like
Yes,
you have a lot of experience. Like a lot of
I
people
do.
in the legal industry like can't get the experience that you have, like, and don't go out there and get the externships, get the internship. So
But
congratulations to you, because I think that is, if you can catch on knowing that you need that practical experience, you will succeed
absolutely.
as a lawyer. So is that something like consciously that you did? Like you went out and got all this experience?
Yes.
Okay.
I think when I started law school, I thought I wanted to be a judge. That was hilarious.
It's
I
not, Leann, you're such a young lady, like it's not out of the books. I mean, it's not
It's
out of the
not, but I just don't know that's the lifestyle that I prefer. I'll put it that way.
20 years down the road, you never know.
You never know. I shouldn't say no. Never say never.
Never say never.
So yeah, I was kind of searching for the practice areas that I enjoyed, and I was also searching for the work-life balance that worked for me. So I
Yep.
did big law firms, small law firms,
Yes, I saw that.
nonprofit. I interned for a judge. And then my final semester, I interned at the UN. And that's when I was like, oh, international law, human rights law, that just clicks for me. So that's really, I think, my passion area of law. If I
Yeah,
had to,
like I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Vee. Like I watch a lot of Gary Vee, and
I
he
love
tells,
Gary
yeah, I love Gary. He tells people to like taste different things, right? So, and it's
Vee.
not always easy to do that in the legal field.
No, it's
It's hard to
not.
like get in there. There are places
It's
that are
not.
like free legal clinics that like have a waiting list for attorneys that like,
Mhm.
meaning free legal clinic, like they're not going to pay you. Like you still can't
Right.
even get in there to do your pro bono legal work. Um,
Exactly.
but you even had the experience of like a big law firm I saw. So
Mhm.
what, like, do you remember like anything about that experience? You don't have to go on about it long, but
Yeah, so that was my summer associate position in West Palm Beach, actually. So I
okay.
was also trying different areas of Florida to see, would I prefer to live here? South Florida gets a little crazy. Um, I took away from that experience, I think a lot of things led me up to realize that I really liked any work that was related to human rights and just
Okay.
connecting with humans in a way that you don't get to do in other practice areas. Um, I did a wrongful convictions claim bill in Florida, and it was actually approved way after I left. I had to look it up like 10 years later. I was like, oh, wow, this
Yeah.
actually went somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was such a fulfilling experience for me that I was like, okay, more of this, less of
More of this.
civil litigation.
Yeah.
I think I did like 3 different practice areas while I was
Yeah.
there. So that's what I got out of that experience particularly.
So what about your first job out of law school? I feel like a lot of people with their first job out of law school, it's not always super satisfying. I'm not asking you to condemn anybody or to, put anybody down, but what was that like? Like, what did you do as your first job out of law school?
Yeah, so my very first job, well, so there's the job that I had. Ooh, okay, I can answer this question 2 ways actually. So there's the job that I had immediately after I graduated, because I actually was in limbo waiting to pass the bar. And so I went back to intern for that real estate law firm that I first interned for.
Okay.
So that was really cool, coming in after my law degree and knowing a lot more and being a lot more competent and sort of being congratulated for being a lot more efficient as an associate versus an
Yeah.
intern, right? So that was really fun. But that wasn't really sustainable because again, it was a small firm. They weren't looking to bring on a third associate. So I just kind of did what a lot of attorneys do as soon as they get licensed. I just went into pretrial civil litigation because those jobs were plentiful. and it paid pretty well, and it was right here in Newark, New Jersey.
Yep.
I already knew that I didn't want to do that long term, but I think at the time I was like, well, a job is a job, got to start somewhere. And that's actually what sort of propelled me onto this path. And this is what I say, this is what I mean when I say to law students, don't think anything is a redirection or rejection in a negative way.
Right.
Because I was at that firm doing civil litigation, which I hated. And then they had a conference one day with a nonprofit that is called Unchained at Last. They do a lot of work with women and girls who are in forced or arranged marriages. And until this day, I still take on pro bono clients from this particular nonprofit. So I got my fix in a sense. I got to do some human rights work while I was working there. And then I went on to helping them become a part of the UN.
Wow.
From my experience at the UN, I knew how to like put in an application for a nonprofit to be recognized and to be able to send individuals to speak on behalf of the nonprofit.
Wow. So you had like a real good like experience at your first job.
Yeah.
Good
So
for
it
you.
wasn't the job itself, like my 9 to 5, I hated, but I made the connections that were necessary for me to get to where I am now. That led me to go interview for another nonprofit in California. And it was during that interview process that the board member, so she was actually an advisor to the board. She was an immigration attorney, I think based in Ohio or some random state. She called me and told me, quite frankly, after the interview, you don't want to work here. You're not going to get paid well. If you really want to do human rights work, you should start your own practice.
Wait, who told you this? Somebody at the firm?
She was an attorney that was an advisor to the board of the nonprofit that I was interviewing with. How crazy is that?
Man, talk about loyalty, huh? What kind of loyalty is that?
She has a very, very like direct and candid one-on-one conversation with me.
It's nice.
Says,
she saw potential. She saw the potential that we all see.
She says, start your own firm. This was the beginning of 2016, and I thought she was crazy. But
well, you know what? I love that segue because I do want to jump into this next question, unless you have more to say about that.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so my next question, how do you know as a young attorney when it's time to start your own firm?
That's a good question, Ben.
Or like how did you know, like after practicing for a little while, that it was sort of time to go on my own and like do my own thing? Like I understand the law, I know how to do this.
Right. I think for me, honestly, I took cues from other people. So many people just started asking me to take cases on, and I was like, this is awkward because I work for another firm, or at the time I was working for another company. Yeah. But I think I really went with the faith that others had in me, and I believed in that. I actually believed in their faith more than I believed in my own. And then with time, I grew in my confidence, and as my practice grew, I started to realize that they were onto something. Yeah. I started adding practice areas from experiences that I had already had from the past. So not everyone's going to have that experience. Not everyone's going to have a family member that says, hey, do my immigration petition. And you're like, what? Like before I even started my own practice, I had already done multiple immigration petitions. I'd done an uncontested divorce. I don't know why, but people just trusted me with doing some of their cases. And yeah. I obviously had mentors and, did thorough research, right? So that's a second point. Make sure you have a good support system for when you start your own practice. Make sure you have good mentors. I was lucky enough to have mentors that were older and my same age. So other friends that started their own practice around the same time. And so I knew who to call if I was really unsure of an issue or felt that I couldn't figure something out on my own.
That's good. That's actually leads to my next question. You're like reading my notes.
Reading your mind.
I was going to say, like, any advice for someone trying to decide if they should launch their own firm?
Yeah. So get a mentor, and again,
mentor, huge.
You don't have to be an elder, because I think when I graduated, I thought I need someone with like 30 years of experience. Yeah. But actually, a lot of the greatest advice I've gotten were from peers, and the most, I guess, solid support I've gotten were from peers, because a lot of elderly attorneys, they're so far removed from what it is like to be a young attorney, a new attorney. to be a rookie, essentially. I think that they have a little bit of a hard time relating to us.
Okay, gotcha. I don't think I ever asked, like, at what moment in your life, this was sort of something I asked at the beginning, but like, at what moment in your life did you know you wanted to be an attorney?
Oh, it was like third grade. I
Was
knew
there,
for such a
was,
long time.
was there an incident that happened, or?
I don't think there was an incident. I just always thought of doctors and lawyers as like the top tier professions.
Okay,
And grandfather was a vet, and he would take me to the clinic with him. And so I just knew from those experiences that I would never want to go into medicine.
okay,
Um, so then I always had law in the back of my mind. And when I was younger, I danced a lot. So I took ballet, tap, jazz, etc.
nice.
And one of the dancers that I thought was great as an adult was also an attorney. So I thought, oh, and it's so funny because has nothing to do with the profession, but I thought, oh, if she's able to be an attorney and do what she loves on the side, like come
Yeah,
to practice 3, 4 times a week. Little did I know, it's actually quite difficult to do that, what she was doing.
yeah,
But that gave me the feeling that you can make your career what you wanted and to sort of fit you as an individual becoming an attorney.
yeah. That's great. I mean, that's great to learn, especially a lot of the stuff that we are fed as law students and people, their perception of attorneys like working 100 hours a week.
Exactly. So my perception was not what most people think of for attorneys. It was not, oh, I'm going to just like work all the time. I knew
Well,
it
I
was,
mean, if you stayed with that big firm, by the way, I did want to mention Leann was at a big
yeah.
firm. She had a big firm job in the summer. That's
Mhm.
amazing. So you might have been working 120 hours a
I
week.
was working a lot.
Yeah,
Yes. I
there you
was
go.
working on the way to work and working on my way home from work. And
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
crazy.
this is not for me.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. And it
Um,
was and I still felt like I didn't have enough time in the day to get done what I wanted to get
yeah,
done.
yeah,
Well, it wasn't for me. And that's fine.
yeah. No, for sure. I mean, you got to do what you want to do. I mean,
Mhm.
it's, some people want to do that. Other people don't. Like, some people are
Yeah.
wired to work
I
100
mean,
hours a day.
I'm not going to lie, as a solo practitioner, as the owner of a small law firm, there are going to be some nights where you work late. But I
Of
think
course.
what I prefer is that I choose the nights that I work late. I can say, you know what, I have a really big deadline Thursday. It's either going to be Wednesday night or Tuesday night. Which one do I want to stay up until whatever time,
Yeah,
working things out? Or which one do I want to enlist additional help for if I wanted to, bring
right.
on outside services? So I actually have a virtual paralegal now. He works out of
Okay.
India. So it's been
Works out of where? Sorry.
India.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it's been really great having that support in a different time zone because I will assign him tasks. And then by the time I wake up in the morning, I
Oh,
am
that's the
here.
best.
Yeah.
That's the
I
best.
actually learned that from being in-house at the IT company because we
Yeah,
work with an offshore team in India, and I
yeah,
actually was tasked with training them. So I was accustomed to waking up early in the morning, giving them tasks or like giving them a training, and then they would implement it by the very next day.
yeah. And I get that because we had somebody on the podcast who is the owner of a firm. I just say it is the owner of a company called Get Staffed Up, and they're actually in Florida, and
Okay.
they do that. Like they offer offshore
Oh, cool.
virtual help. So if you need a company, let me know.
Writing this down as you speak.
Yeah, it's called Get Staffed Up. They're one of our partners. I'd
Okay,
love to set you up. We had them on our podcast. I could tell you who it was after the show,
sure.
and I think it's really cool, like the business idea, and we could definitely talk about that. By the way, like while we're talking about how to set you up with somebody who's like a virtual person, I do want to tell you, like, so I don't forget here, if there's anybody on Lawyer Stories like that you want to connect with that I might know that I follow that we featured, like I would love to make the warm introduction for you. One thing that I want to do here is connect the legal profession.
Sure.
That's sort of what I aim to do. So if you see somebody out there that you think would benefit in terms of maybe a referral source or you're on the listserv that we have now, I think
Mhm. I am.
just let me know. I know it's a lot of emails, but just let me know, and you can we could set you up an intro to anybody that we know.
That would be awesome. There actually is an attorney in Trinidad on the listserv that I've been telling myself I need to comb through the
I'll do
emails
it. Let me
to
do it.
find to
Yeah.
connect with. I haven't done it
I
yet.
love, it makes, that's like the heart of what I wanted, of what we want to do here at Lawyer Stories. And like, I
Yeah,
love doing that. So
it's a phenomenal mission. I mean, and can I
thank you.
just say I'm so proud of how much you've grown since we
Thank you.
first connected. It is amazing.
Appreciate
It's
it.
really something.
I appreciate it. Well, we do it with people like you who are willing to offer up their story, who have had fantastic journeys through the law, and who then come back on the podcast, meet with me, and talk about it. So I really appreciate your support and your journey. But we're not done here yet, Leann. I have some more questions for you.
Okay.
So you're an immigration attorney. I have family who does an amazing job in South Florida as immigration attorneys. How do you, but immigration is sort of like there's sunset laws, there's sunset provisions, there's things that
Mhm.
come and go, it's always changing. So
Constantly
like, tell
changing.
me, like, how do you stay updated with like your immigration laws?
Yeah, so I think every practitioner should know about this. You can actually sign up for alerts through the USCIS website. So
Okay.
whenever there is a major update or alert, I get an email in my inbox.
Okay.
And so therefore I don't have to, I used to have you can do Google alerts, but there's so much going on in immigration all the time that I didn't have time to read through all the Google alerts. So I tried that, but honestly, I make sure to read every single USCIS update. And that's where I'll get certain information. Like I can tell you right now what's happening with the April and May visa bulletin. If you are in one of the EB categories for Indian foreign nationals, it's actually moved up for 2 to 3 months, both months respectively. So that means if you have an I-140 that's already approved, we can go ahead and file your green card application. I wouldn't know that unless I got those alerts, and I wouldn't know the
Right.
date the alert came out in order to inform my clients, or even just to confirm, because a lot of immigrants, they follow immigration updates themselves. So I don't want my client knowing something before I know it, right? That's not good for business.
Yeah.
So that's how I personally stay up to date.
Okay. That's great. So like, excuse me, what sets Stanick Law like apart from other firms in the area?
I would say our individualized services. I really try to factor in the needs of the particular client. I do offer flexible payment plans. And I think the real game changer for me since the pandemic was hiring my virtual paralegal.
Okay.
He had 6 years of immigration experience. And if he was an attorney, I would put my full confidence in him to prepare and file my petition.
Okay.
So we have two highly skilled individuals on each case. And I think that really makes a difference. Plus, you have me during the day and you potentially have him during the night, right? Because of the time difference.
Right.
So between the two of us, I think we do a very good job of tag teaming and giving that individualized custom service.
Wow, that's awesome. It sounds like you're really on that. So, real estate is an interesting thing right now. It's a seller's market, big time. Like I live in Massachusetts, and it's crazy. Like I was born and raised in Maine. I don't know. Have you ever heard of Maine, the state of Maine?
Wait, I was actually just in Maine a couple of months ago.
Really? Where?
Yes.
Where?
Portland.
I'm born and raised Portland, Maine.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Can I tell you I had the best lobster roll?
Lobster's good.
And
Yes.
I had the best oysters of my entire life.
Really?
And I'm
Where? Do
not
you remember where? You can tell me after, but where?
We can talk about, we'll have to talk
We'll
about
talk
this.
about it after. But that's awesome. Yes. So
Yes,
I'm
I
like,
love Portland. I'm definitely
yes.
going back in the summer.
Well, we'll see you there. Let's meet up. So we'll be
Yes,
there.
let's do it.
So real estate, back to real estate. So it's very volatile. It's up and down. It's a seller's market. It's very difficult to like find a home right now if you're a buyer. Like, how do you like? What can you tell us about what's going on in like I actually think I have a friend looking for a home in New Jersey. He's an attorney as well, but it's so volatile that it's up and down. Like, what's going on like there with the real estate?
So there's just a lot of bidding wars, and the real issue is just, and it's not just New Jersey. Every venue has a dire need for inventory, period. Inventory is low and the demand is very high right now.
Right.
For New Jersey specifically, I will say look into condos and townhomes versus single family homes, because there are a lot of good options that everyone's a little hesitant sometimes to purchase a condo or a townhome, but you may find exactly what you're looking for in those
Okay.
options. And investment properties, double family, triple family homes,
Yeah.
renting to
Yep.
tenants is a great option. I don't know if you know what's been happening with Airbnb, but they suffered a huge loss, obviously, during the pandemic. They
Really?
completely bounced back up in the fourth quarter. I think they reported a $55 million profit in the fourth quarter, which is amazing. So that just goes to say it's a really good time
It's a nice
to
profit.
purchase multifamily or investment properties and
Yeah.
potentially make one of them an Airbnb.
Right. So you also, yeah, Airbnb is can't go wrong there.
Yeah,
So $55 million profit, that's not bad.
at all.
So you also do business, right? Like, so basically, like Lawyer Stories has gone from a passion project to an LLC. You
Mhm.
got the LLC like a year ago, I don't know, a couple years ago.
Good, very good.
Don't really do much with it, but, and honestly, I might need you to explain LLC later, even though I am a lawyer licensed in 3 states.
We
But
can discuss.
okay, so my question to you is like when Stanick Law
Mhm.
assists a startup, like say you were assisting me in like getting my papers together and all that, like what happens like once the business is organized and structured? Like, are you gonna do you stay with that company? Do you guide them through their first couple
Yeah.
of years of business? How does that work?
So I would say for my startups, they usually stay on with clients for like the first maybe 2 to 3 years until they've probably gotten enough of their contracts that are needed, any major agreements with vendors. We do work with them. And that's where my experience working in-house for the IT company comes because
Okay.
I literally looked at contracts between third-party vendors and the IT company for every single H-1B holder that I worked on an H-1B visa for. So I left that company, and it was actually one of the clients that I had from that company that asked me, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting my own business. Can you talk to me more about that?" And so I saw it as a really great area to grow in terms of my practice areas. And I had actually taken intellectual property and business law in law school already. I never really used what I learned, but I had a lot of the contracts saved. I had my notes. And so I decided to just read up on the law a little bit more and start assisting startups, not just through business registration, organization documents, publication,
Okay.
etc., but also helping them with their contract drafting, any agreements that they need to be a fully, a fully running business.
Okay. So that's so you'll do all the contracts and like everything that they need if they need like a certain vendors and all that sort of thing.
Correct. And then I think with startups particularly, you don't really know what you need until you start, because sometimes there's a concept in your mind, what kind of business you want to run, and then there's
Right.
reality of what kind of business brings the most profit, right? So there's a
Right.
little bit of trial and error there. And that's why I say there's a 1 to 3 year window of opportunity to kind of figure those things out. They say most businesses fail by the 5th year. So I try to set them up in those first 3 years for success, of course. And as long as they're doing what they need to do on their end to bring in revenue, all is well.
Wow. Okay. So basically, like once you help them get organized with all the documents and the articles and that sort of
Mhm.
thing, you will stay with them and help them with any vendor contracts. And it's not just like let me help you get formed and organized. Like I'm going to help you with your
Right.
partnerships and that sort of thing.
Exactly. One of my clients is building an app right now, and I don't want to talk about his business.
Building a what?
An app, an application.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. So I'm really excited for him because he's in the like sporting and athletics field.
Nice.
Which is actually not even anything that I'm super interested in, other than the fact that I did play soccer/football, they call it football in Trinidad,
Really?
for 1 year in high school. And that was the extent of my athletic experience.
Okay. It's all right. You tried.
But yeah, it's really interesting helping him out, gather his contracts, helping him work with vendors, having him do pilot programs with other companies. And he's really growing, and it's just exciting to see it unfold because it's kind of
Exciting. You got to stay with these businesses, Leann, because you never know
yeah.
where they're going to go. So you
Yeah.
check in with them. You say, hey, can I? I mean, I'm not giving you advice. I'm just saying, like, you check in with them. You say, hey, what's going on? Like, you got any contracts you need? Like, how's
Yeah,
things
yeah.
going? You know,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So, like is there a particular community that you're trying to help the most with your legal services? Or is it just sort of anybody that needs help?
Yeah, I think generally I strive to keep it in like the immigrant, foreign, international communities, just because that's what I'm familiar with. I love working with people from the Caribbean, obviously all islands. I've also studied abroad in Africa and in Europe. So I have these really random cultural connections to other countries. In fact, like I studied abroad in South Africa and Rwanda. I lived for 6 months in the Netherlands when I interned at the UN. So I just love connecting with foreigners in my work. And so if that's all I did, I would be happy.
That's awesome. That's so cool to find your passion and find your people.
Yeah.
So like, where do you see your firm in 5 to 10 years? I know that's kind of that's like an interview question. I don't know if like
Sure.
if you have something for that.
So yeah, I've always wanted to remain on the smaller side. It's not my goal to be a large firm.
Okay.
Not even really my goal to be a medium-sized firm, but I would like to bring on an associate because I think
It's awesome.
it was so difficult for me in the beginning to find a good mentor and someone that I really felt like I could learn from and have a holistic experience with regard to learning the law, running a business, and serving clients in the community in the best ways I knew how. And so I feel that I'm moving closer towards that point in my life. I mean, I'm not super old, but I'm moving closer to that point in my life where I want to pass that on to someone. I did have a law student as an intern last year. That was super fun. She actually landed a really good job in New York.
Nice.
Doing immigration. So happy for her. Actually, she's someone I need to check in with because she was the firm's first like immigration only intern.
Okay.
So that was like a taste of what I feel I can do for an associate in the future. So that's what I think I'd move towards in the future, maybe bringing on 1 or 2 associates and probably another paralegal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations on your success. I think it's terrific, and everything you're doing, it's fun to watch, your evolution of what you're doing with things. And
well, I'm turning into a legal guru, right? Isn't that what you told me?
You are a legal guru. You're a legal guru.
Existence.
Yeah, for sure. So is there anything that we left out today, Leann, that you would like to say or give advice or anything to the Lawyer Stories community?
I would just say my doors are open. Whether it's a consultation, you want advice, you have questions about something, you're not quite ready to hire a lawyer yet, but you want to know what your legal rights are, schedule a consultation because there's no greater time than the present.
Nice. And how can everybody get a hold of you? Besides just asking me, I'll
yeah, please do not inundate Ben. I do have a website. It's www.stanicklaw.com.
Nice.
My Instagram, I recently changed the handle to Lady Lawyer Leann. I created a TikTok, which I've done nothing with yet, but it is in the works. Okay. It looks like it's the new frontier. I've seen a lot of attorneys on TikTok actually having fun with the law, and that's, I think, coming up for me pretty soon. So that's social media. I am on Facebook, but I really don't use it as much. I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of falling off of the Facebook game, but that's okay. So you can reach me through my website. There's a form to fill out there. There's actually a link to my calendar. You can just go ahead and book a consultation with me directly from my website. So that's probably the most prominent way to get in touch.
Nice, very good. Well, we appreciate your support and following your journey, and hopefully we can, catch up and see what you're doing in a couple months, and we'll stay in touch, obviously.
Right. Well, I'm going to see you in Portland.
We're like friends now, and we're going to have a lobster roll and a beer.
Yeah, exactly. This is like, and I'll see you later.
Oh, for sure. And everybody out there, Leann, stay right there. Wherever you are, thanks for tuning in. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourself.